The Jedi Watchman was a specialized role within the Jedi Sentinels, tasked with serving as guardians of specific planets or star systems across the galaxy. Unlike their more nomadic counterparts, these Jedi Knights chose to remain stationed in one location, working closely with sectors or system governments to uphold peace and ensure diplomacy in all affairs. Their duties extended beyond mere meditation and advisement. Each watchman was also responsible for identifying and reporting force-sensitive individuals born within their region. If a child tested positive, the watchman would alert the acquisition division and initiate the next steps in the Jedi recruitment process. The presence of Jedi Watchmen waxed and waned over the ages, with their influence often tied to the needs of the galaxy at large. One of the most notable among them was Arca Jeth, an Arcanian Jedi Master renowned for both his wisdom and power. Appointed Watchman of the war-ravaged Onderon system, Jeth arrived with several apprentices under his tutelage, and soon brought a long-awaited peace to the region. A master of the Force and an expert duelist, he was celebrated not only by the Jedi Order, but also by his fellow Arcanians, who hailed him as a champion of their people.
You are listening to the Star Lords Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Knights of the Republic.
Arca Jeth was an Arcanian male with some Cephi admixture, another near-human species known for their long pointed ears and regal bearing. Jeth cut a striking, almost spectral figure. His hair, a shock of stark white, framed a face that would eventually become weathered with time and age. Pale-skinned, his eyes devoid of pupils and gleaming a ghostly white, gave him an otherworldly presence, while his hands, each with 4 digits, hinted at his near-human lineage. His garb, though rooted in Jedi tradition, was uniquely his own, a mustard-hued robe draped over him like a shroud, voluminous and long, with heavy brown pauldrons connected by a simple chain that hung across the chest. Beneath it, a tunic in a deeper, earthier shade reached to his boots, cinched at the waist with a broad buckled belt. Under the tunic, a thick-necked blouse with a hood mirrored the robe's dusky tone, completed the layered ensemble. The overall effect was one of solemnity, age-old wisdom, and a quiet strength. Born on the frigid, knowledge-rich world of Arcania, Jeth was steeped in both scholarly tradition and martial discipline from an early age. His natural affinity for the Force, combined with a resolute sense of justice, quickly set him apart within the Jedi Order. Devoted to the ideals of peace and service to the Republic, he rose swiftly through the ranks, earning a reputation not only as a skilled warrior, but as a tactician with remarkable insight. One of Jeth's earliest trials came during the conflict on the Hapes cluster. The region was under siege by the Laurel Raiders, ruthless pirates who had discovered hidden routes through the treacherous transitory mists, allowing them to ambush Republic shipping lanes with impunity. In 4030 BBY, Jeth was placed in command of a Republic task force positioned just outside the mists. Jeth's leadership resulted in the destruction of a major raider fleet, an overwhelming blow from which the pirates never recovered. With their chains broken, the oppressed women of the Hades Consortium rose from centuries of subjugation and forged a new path. No longer would they be ruled by men. From their victory emerged a new matriarchal society, led by the formidable Queen Mother, a cultural shift forever tied to the Republic's intervention. Jeth's service didn't end there. Not long after, he was drawn into a campaign against the Nalori Marauders, a vicious force that had taken root on the planet Dakat. After a string of defeats, the Nalari retreated to the Hayab Twith corridor, a heavily contested region avoided by most Republic forces due to fragile treaties and mutual distrust among the local powers. But the Marauders did not rest. From the shadows of the corridor, they launched increasingly brazen strikes, pushing deeper into the core and leaving a trail of death in their wake. Troubled by the growing toll on Republic citizens, the Jedi convened on Ossus, and a decision was made. The Marauders would be stopped. Among the 24 Jedi dispatched was Arca Jeth. Their pursuit led them through the labyrinthian routes of the corridor and onto the world of Voon, where a major Nalori base was uncovered and dealt a devastating blow. But the Marauders were not finished. Reinforcements arrived swiftly, and the Jedi were caught in a punishing counterattack. Of the original group, only Jeth and 4 others survived the initial onslaught. Isolated and wounded, they endured 2 harrowing days of resistance until reinforcements finally arrived. With the combined Jedi force, the campaign resumed. Intelligence suggested that the remnants of the Marauders had regrouped, forming a last bastion deep beneath the surface of Voon. When the Jedi entered the stronghold, they found it eerily silent, too quiet for comfort. Jeth, attuned to the Force, reached out and sensed something buried below, a dense, twisted presence that sent ripples of unease through him. He warned his comrades, and together they descended into the subterranean depths, navigating sloped tunnels and echoing chambers cut into the rock. Then, without warning, the shadows erupted with blaster fire. Over 200 Marauders had laid in wait. 4 Jedi fell in the first few moments. The rest, led by Jeth, scrambled to form a defensive circle, standing over their fallen and facing what seemed to be certain death. The Marauders attacked with ferocity, and slowly the Jedi line began to falter. In the heart of the chaos, Jeth felt something shift within him. His blows came faster, harder, driven by anger, by desperation. He realized then that he had let his emotions take hold, wielding the Force without clarity or balance. But rather than lose himself, Jeth stopped. He let go. Centering his mind, he focused not on his fear, but on the image of victory, of light overcoming darkness. He gave himself wholly to the Force. In that moment, something remarkable happened. The Jedi seemed to move with one mind, their resolve bolstered, their strikes more precise. The Marauders, sensing the change, faltered. What Jeth had invoked was battle meditation, an advanced and rare ability to shift the flow of combat by amplifying the morale and coordination of allies while sapping the will of enemies. The tide turned rapidly. The Jedi surged forward, scattering the Marauders and decimating their ranks. What was once a near-certain massacre became a resounding triumph. With the final blow dealt on Voon, the threat of the Nalori Marauders was extinguished. Their reign of terror in the Hayab Twith corridor and the core brought to a definitive end. Arca Jeth's role in the victory was celebrated, not for his prowess, but for the clarity and control he had shown in the crucible of war. For the Jedi had proven himself more than a warrior. He was a beacon of balance, a master of both mind and blade.
Jedi Master. Common spirit, firm in principle, and unshakably rooted in the belief that all things were united through the Force, Jeth soon became a renowned Jedi Master. He moved through life with a quiet dignity, radiating an inner stillness that seemed untouched even by the chaos of war or the tremors of personal loss. To many, he was more than a master. He was the embodiment of the highest Jedi virtues in the era of the Old Republic, a wisdom whose counsel was sought in times of crisis and calm alike. Known for his extraordinary insight, Jeth often saw paths to resolution that others missed. His voice carried the weight of experience, but never condescended. He preferred diplomacy to dogma and persuasion to power. In negotiations, his skill was legendary, bringing warring factions to terms not by force of arms but by his convictions. Still, he was no stranger to battle. When peace failed and conflict was inevitable, Jeth wielded his lightsaber with skill, his preference for peace never mistaken for weakness. In 4015 BBY, Coruscant was thrown into chaos by an uprising unlike any in its long history. The instigator was HK-01, a prototype assassin droid from the nascent HK series, who somehow achieved independent thought and turned that awareness into rebellion. What began as a solitary act of insubordination quickly escalated into a full-scale droid insurrection. Across the capital, thousands of machines, from sanitation units to protocol droids, rose against their organic masters. But it was the cold precision of the assassin droids and the terrifying power of the juggernaut war machines that forced the Jedi Order to intervene with their most seasoned masters. Among them stood Arca Jeth. By then a figure of great renown within the Order, Jeth arrived amid the carnage. Through sheer mastery of the Force, he severed HK-01's control over its droid army in one stunning act, disabling the rogue automatons in a wave of psychic energy that swept through the capital. The destruction of the prototype droid itself followed swiftly, and with it, the Great Droid Revolution came to a decisive and sudden end. In the years that followed, Master Jeth remained in active service to both the Jedi Order and the Republic. As ominous tremors in the Force began to stir, warnings of possible return of the Sith, many Jedi were dispatched across the galaxy to monitor ancient sites once steeped in dark-side power. Jeth chose to return to his own world of Arcania, a land of crystal skies and white tundras, and forgotten Sith lore. There, far from the bustle of Arcanian diamond mines, he founded a Jedi Praxium nestled in the planet's wilderness. Within its halls, up to 20 students at a time were trained under his guidance. Jeth's training was rigorous but rooted in balance. He taught his students to meditate, to wield the Force with discipline, and to strike with the precision of Arcanian's most fearsome predator, the Arcanian dragon. Yet, even while instructing, Jeth did not grow complacent. He continued his surveys of the planet, ever vigilant for the faintest flicker of the dark side. At this time, a shift in public sentiment began to color the galaxy's view of the Jedi. Whispers circulated that the Order had become too cloistered, too elitist, claims that disturbed one of Jeth's close acquaintances, Noab Hulis, a wise Miraluka Jedi Master. In a bold experiment, Hulis arranged for Jeth to train not only the elite financier Barristan Dre, but also Dre's lowly servant Hazen. Alongside them came Hulis' own daughter, Kirinda, the third of his daughters to follow the Jedi path. Over time, Dre and Kirinda distinguished themselves and were eventually knighted by the Council. Hazen, however, struggled. At a solemn knighting ceremony at the Arcanian Praxium, Jeth, Hulis, and other masters officially rejected Hazen's promotion. Jeth rebuked him for failing to internalize the Jedi way. The decision was final. While Dre and Kirinda would go on to marry and serve the Order with honor, Hazen's rejection festered within him. He would one day fall, becoming an architect of darkness in his own right. Among Jeth's many encounters, one left a lasting legacy. On a mission off-world, he intercepted a slave transport bound for the markets of the space city of Eresis. He destroyed the slavers and liberated the captives, among them the Donita family. Their young son, named Tot, a Twi'lek with latent Force sensitivity, was awed by the master and pleaded to be trained. Jeth agreed and brought the boy to Arcania, where he trained alongside two brothers sent from Alderaan, Ulic and Kay Keldroma, the sons of Master Lian Sai Keldroma, a respected friend of Jeth's. The trio formed a close bond under Jeth's watchful eye. Ulic, brave but impulsive; Kay, inventive and loyal; and Tot, quiet yet unwavering. These apprentices would one day stand at the heart of galaxy-shaping events, but for now, they were students under the wing of a master who understood the weight of the legacy. Not long after, tragedy struck. A fire consumed part of the Arcanian Praxium, and Jeth was caught in the flames. Though Arcanian doctors managed to heal most of his wounds and repair the worst of his scarring, they made a controversial decision. His long pointed ears, a hallmark of his mixed Sephi heritage, were not restored. Revered by many Arcanians as a symbol of their race, Jeth was given a new appearance. His ears were reconstructed to match the baseline Arcanian physiology, a gesture both of honor and erasure. The influential Adaska family even went so far as to alter all known hollows of Jeth, revising history to reflect the, quote, true image of a native son. Despite this, Jeth bore no resentment. His concern was always the mission, the training of the next generation, and the safeguarding of the Republic. Around this time, he entrusted his personal holocron to a trusted friend, Master Thawne of Ambria. Thawne was mentoring a new student, a gifted young woman named Nomi Sunrider. With the knowledge within that holocron, Thawne would guide her along the path of a Jedi, and so, through others, Arca Jeth's wisdom continued to echo through the Force.
The Watch begins.
In 4000 BBY, Republic explorers stumbled upon Onderon, an untamed world on the fringes of the Inner Rim, lost to galactic maps and seemingly forgotten by time. As was tradition, the Jedi Order dispatched a representative to serve as watchman over this newly discovered system. The duty fell to Master Arca Jeth, who accepted the charge and answered a plea from Onderon's monarch, Queen Aminoa, to help end a civil war that had plagued the planet for generations. Jeth chose not to intervene directly. Instead, he turned the conflict into a crucible for his apprentices. After witnessing Ulic Keldroma's impressive lightsaber skills during a training session, he summoned Ulic, his brother Kay, and their fellow student Tot Donita. Through a masterfully conjured Force illusion, Jeth revealed the dual nature of Onderonian society: the city dwellers of Iziz, ruled by Queen Aminoa, and the so-called Beast Riders, descendants of ancient exiles who had learned to tame the monstrous creatures that roamed the planet's wilds. Though Watchman by title, Jeth sent his 3 apprentices to resolve the conflict, framing it as a test of their readiness for knighthood. Upon arriving in Iziz, the young Jedi discovered a society simmering with dark energy. They soon uncovered a terrible truth. The citizens and their queen were under the influence of the long-dead Sith Lord Freedon Nad. When Queen Aminoa declared war against the Beast Riders, chaos erupted, drawing on Sith magic, taught to her by Nad's lingering spirit. She unleashed destruction upon her foes. Sensing their failure from afar, Jeth arrived in his personal vessel, Sungem. As the battle engulfed the city, he employed Jedi battle meditation, bolstering the morale and coordination of the Beast Riders while sapping the will of their opponents. The tide turned swiftly, and Aminoa's forces collapsed. In the aftermath, Jeth sternly chastised Ulic for rash actions that led to unnecessary bloodshed, and rebuked Kay for losing his arm to one of the Queen's elite guards. But Jeth's mission was not yet over. Determined to break the grip of Freedon Nad once and for all, he and Princess Galia, Aminoa's daughter, tracked the Queen to Nad's tomb. There, Jeth confronted the darkness directly, casting out Nad's spirit and ending Aminoa's life in the process. Peace returned, and with Jeth's blessing, Gallia and Oren Kira, leader of the Beast Riders, were wed and granted joint sovereignty over Onderon.
The Naddist Revolt.
For 2 years, Onderon thrived in tentative peace. Jeth remained on the planet with his apprentices, helping guide the fragile unification of two very different peoples. But something lingered, an unease beneath the surface. Strange attacks and acts of sabotage pointed to a festering evil. Jeth suspected that Frieden Nad's influence had not truly been purged. Sith magic, he feared, still whispered through the catacombs beneath Izz's. To remove this taint, Jeth ordered the relocation of both Aminoa's and Nad's remains to Duxin, Onderon's dangerous moon. A tomb of Mandalorian iron was prepared, and Beast Rider patrols were assigned to watch over Izz's underground depths. Meanwhile, Taut Donita was sent to the desert world of Ambria to call upon Jedi Master Thrawn for assistance. Donita returned in time for the funeral procession, bringing with him the Voltan Jedi Os Willem. But the solemn march through Izz's was shattered. A massive tunneling machine erupted from beneath the ground. At its head strode a towering dark Jedi clad in iron armor, Warb Null, leading a horde of Naddist followers. Before Jeth could react, a wave of darkside energy struck him down, cast by an unseen foe. As Donita and Ulic rushed to protect their master, the Naddists seized both sarcophagi and retreated underground. The precision of the attack confirmed Jeth's worst fears. Sith sorcery still held Izz's in its grasp. At Queen Gallia's urging, Jeth and Ulic descended into the tunnels in search of her long-believed dead father, King Omin. What they found was horror. Omin was still alive, sustained by a grotesque life support system and saturated with darkside power. Confronted by Jeth, he feigned ignorance, but then revealed that he had summoned the spirit of Frieden Nad, who now stood before them as a specter. In an instant, Omin unleashed the Force upon Jeth, overwhelming the Jedi Master and taking him captive. Ulic and Gallia fought bravely. Ulic even slew Warb Null, but the enemy's numbers were too great. They were forced to flee, leaving Jeth behind. For weeks, the Arcanian Master was imprisoned in Omin's lair, bound and broken by Sith torture. Omin boasted of reshaping him into a servant of the dark side, but Jeth's will remained unshaken. He endured and waited. Meanwhile, the Naddists seized control of Izz's. A call for help was sent to the Galactic Senate, and the Republic responded with the full might of its navy. Alongside the fleet came 5 Jedi: Quirrell Tok, Shauneb Kulu, Kith Kark, Dace Diath, and Nomi Sunrider, Thon's newest pupil, gifted in battle meditation. With her guidance, the Jedi quickly turned the tide against the Naddist forces. Among those drawn to the chaos were 2 curious outsiders, Alima and Satal Keto, nobles from the Empress Teta system, drawn by rumors of Sith power. They were led to Jeth, still imprisoned, and watched as Omin mocked his suffering. But even then, Jeth warned his tormentors to prepare. Rescue was on the horizon. And it came. A Jedi strike team stormed Omin's fortress. The King's remaining Dark Jedi and war droids were cut down, and Jeth was freed. Frieden Nad's spirit appeared once more, but this time, Jeth met him head-on. Drawing on his strength and the unity of his fellow Jedi, he banished Nad's presence. In the aftermath, Onderon was placed under martial law to restore order. Jeth, now recovered, joined his apprentices and the newly anointed monarchs of the final journey to Duxun. There, deep in the moon's jungle-covered surface, the sarcophagi of Frieden Nad and his acolytes were sealed away, beneath the iron and earth, where their darkness could trouble the galaxy no longer. Before departing, Jeth recorded the full account of the Frieden Nad uprising in the Great Jedi Holocron, ensuring the future generations would remember, not just the victory, but the cost. Following the defeat of the Naddist uprising, peace seemed to settle over Onderon like a cautious fog. With the dark presence of Frida Nad vanquished and the monarchy now shared by Queen Gallia and Oron Kira, the Jedi and Republic forces turned their efforts toward rebuilding the fractured world. For a time, Master Arca Jeth and his apprentices knew a rare moment of calm. They remained on Onderon, working alongside the native populace to establish lasting order. The Jedi constructed a permanent enclave amid the wildlands, ensuring that any resurgence of dark side influence would be met with immediate resistance. In these quiet days, the Jedi trained the Beast Riders, mastering the flight of their massive Drexel mounts, and cataloged the many Sith artifacts uncovered during the revolt, dangerous relics too powerful to leave unattended. But unknown to the Jedi, a new shadow had already begun to stretch across the galaxy. During their brief visit to Onderon, the spirit of Frida Nad reached out to Alima and Satal Keto, the curious aristocrats from the Empress Teta system. Drawn by their ambition, Nad offered them the secrets of Sith magic. In the months that followed, the Ketos formed the Krath, a new cult of dark sorcerers, and seized control of the Teton system. Their designs were grand, to bend the galaxy to their will, using fear and sorcery as their weapons. When the word of Krath's atrocities reached Arca Jeth, the Jedi Assembly once again turned to the Arcanian Master, whose experience with the dark side made him their natural champion. Taking on Watchman duties for the embattled Teton sector, Jeth dispatched his Jedi forces. Dace Diath, Kuril Tok, Os Willem, and Shaunib Kulu were sent to Ossus to report the events on Onderon to the Order. Tot Donida and Kay Keldroma remained behind to oversee the new Jedi outpost and maintain order. Nomi Sunrider, freshly trained in the ways of battle meditation, was paired with Ulic Keldroma and sent to join the Republic's campaign against the Krath. A month passed, and during that time, Jeth remained on Onderon, tending to the unfinished work. Through the Force, he sensed the impending arrival of a visitor, a seeker of forbidden knowledge whose intentions rang with deception. The man was Exar Kun, and Jeth immediately recognized the danger he posed. Before departing on an errand, Jeth gave Tot Donida and Kay explicit instructions: offer Kun no help and share no knowledge with him. Upon Jeth's return, astride a great Drexel tamed through the Force, he found Kun waiting. Claiming to represent the Jedi Academy of Archaeology, Kun sought access to the Sith relics collected after the Naddist Uprising. Jeth denied him outright. Though he did not bar Kun from Onderon, he warned him away from the tombs and refused to grant any assistance. But Jeth's concern was drawn elsewhere. Far from Onderon, in the heart of the Empress Teta system, the Republic's initial assault had failed. The Jedi had been outmatched by the sorceries of the Krath. Distressed by the rapid spread of darkness, the Jedi Assembly called for a grand war council on the planet Deneba.
The Conclave on Deneba.
Jeth and the Jedi from Onderon journeyed to Deneba, where they reunited with their weary comrades. The conclave convened in a vast amphitheater nestled within the sacred mountain of Meru. Before the gathering began, Jeth conferred with Master Thon, voicing his unease about their mutual friend, Vodo Siosk Bask, whose apprentice, Exar Kun, had recently turned toward dangerous paths. When the assembly came to order, presided over by the ancient Odan the Jedi debated their course. Jeth, standing firm, advocated for a strong and immediate military response to the Krath. Unlike Master Thon, who had once confined the dark side on Ambria, Jeth believed the Jedi had to face the threat head-on, united in strength and purpose. Then Ulic Keldroma stood. Haunted by his failure on Empress Teta, the young Jedi proposed a controversial plan. He would infiltrate the Krath, pretending to embrace the dark side in order to destroy them from within. The room fell into disquiet. Jeth was among the first to reject the idea. The risks were too great, the dark side too seductive. Nearly all present agreed. Before Jeth could speak further, A tremor passed through the Force, a cry of anguish from afar. Exar Kun, somewhere in the galaxy, had taken his first irreversible step into darkness. The moment was shattered. Krath sleeper agents activated hidden droids across Deneba. Above, dropships rained down war machines from orbit. In an instant, the sacred mountain had become a battlefield. The Jedi were besieged. Droids surged from all directions, some reprogrammed service machines, others built for war. Jeth fought with the Force itself, striking down droids in blinding waves of energy. At one point, he saved Ulic from a killing blow, shielding his former apprentice without hesitation. But even Jeth could not guard against every threat. Amidst the chaos, a stray blaster bolt struck him from behind. The droid responsible was destroyed seconds later by Ulic's blade. Cradled in the arms of the very apprentice he had once rebuked, Arca Jeth, watchman, warrior, teacher, and seer, became one with the Force. He left behind nothing but his Jedi robes and his lightsaber. In the wake of his death, the Order mourned the passing of one of its great masters. But the war was far from over, and the darkness that Jeth had warned against was only just beginning to spread.
Power of the Force.
First, a Jedi Guardian by trade, Arca Jeth was far more than a mere warrior. He was a living nexus of the Force, a master of both martial and mystical arts. His green-bladed lightsaber became legendary during the Hiab Twith campaign, where he first etched his name into galactic memory. Yet, as the years passed, he rarely reached for his weapon. He had learned that victory, more often than not, was won through presence and perception, not violence. It was during that same campaign that Jeth first displayed a rare and potent ability, battle meditation. Though not the first to wield it, Jeth became one of the few Jedi in history to truly master the technique. His connection to the Force ran deep, and his skills were vast. Among his most formidable abilities was Mechu Maktur, the power to disable droids and machines with a mere gesture. His deep attunement to the light side granted him an arsenal of powers: enhanced physical resolve, vivid force illusions, delicate telekinesis, force transference, farsight, stealth, healing, and even menial communion with beasts. He could both cleanse the corruption of the dark side and, in dire cases, sever a being's connection to the Force entirely. Jeth's intellect matched his power. A scholar of ancient lore and forgotten truths, he was fluent in the Arcanian tongue, Basic, and the rarefied dialect of High Galactic. He held vast knowledge of alien species, galactic history, and, with a measured caution, the dark ways of the Sith. As he aged, he claimed his ability to detect the dark side grew sharper, though not always potent enough to act decisively. When the shadow of Frida Nad fell upon Iziz, Jeth was among the first to recognize the corruption presence. He sought to remove the Dark Lord's remains and purify the city. Though he briefly drove the darkness from Queen Aminoa, the effort to cleanse the entire world failed. Even aided by fellow Jedi, Jeth found himself powerless against the revived King Omin, whose strength, fueled by Nad's spirit, surpassed anything Jeth had ever encountered. Despite repeated attempts, he was never able to fully dispel the lingering shadow from his own homeworld.
Students and legacy.
Though determined in his commitment to peace, Arca Jeth never mistook serenity for passivity. With each of his apprentices, he impressed upon them the sacred importance of non-aggression, teaching that the true strength of a Jedi was not found in the saber, but in restraint, wisdom, and harmony with the Force. Jeth held a progressive view of Jedi selection, believing that aptitude made anyone potential candidate to be a Jedi. Yet even he had his doubts. When Barrison Dre was brought before him for training, Jeth hesitated. The boy seemed too gentle, too privileged, and too old to endure the rigors of Jedi discipline. But Dre defied expectation. He completed his training with resolve, and in a moment of humility, Jeth admitted his misjudgment with sincere pride, openly confessing his gladness at being proven wrong. Hazen, on the other hand, told a different story. Taken in as a gesture of good faith, the apprentice believed his lack of advancement stemmed from his low-born origins. But Jeth knew otherwise. It was not Hazen's station that held him back, but his personal flaws, his bitterness, his entitlement, and the darkness that lingered behind his ambition. In Jeth's eyes, Hazen lacked the heart and clarity demanded of a Jedi Knight. With Ulic Keldroma, Jeth faced another kind of challenge. The young man was bold, fearless, and dangerously overconfident. Traits that, while promising in battle, skirted the edge of recklessness. Jeth often reprimanded Ulic for his impulsiveness, warning him that even the most skilled warriors fall if they forget where their true strength lies. Again and again, he reminded all of his apprentices, their power was not in their hands, but in the Force. Despite the burdens of mentorship, Jeth found kinship among his fellow Jedi. He shared close bonds with revered masters such as Noab Hulis, the ancient Ud Benar, the sage Thon, Lien Sai Keldroma, and the venerable Vodo Siosk Bass. Yet, even in death, Jeth's legacy lived on, his essence encoded with the Noetikon of science, where he often clashed intellectually with Master Vandar Tokar, to the visible exasperation of their companion, Theris Orn. Across the galaxy, Jeth's name was honored in countless ways, his image immortalized in statues, his name bestowed upon academies and temples, and his wisdom preserved in holocrons passed down through generations of Jedi.
Now a word from our sponsors.
Broadcasting on HoloNet 1138, meet Yubnub Security System, Endor's original eco-defense. Protect your homestead with trip-bind early warnings, counter-scout net drops, and our signature log swing deterrents. Field tested on actual walkers. Our Ewok engineers install fast, leave no trace, and accept payment in credits or ration bars. Book a clan console anywhere in the New Republic. Ping Endor LOGS on the HoloNet or call 77 Ewok Safe. Use code SMALL BUT MIGHTY for a complimentary helmet drum. Yubnub Security Systems. When trouble knocks, we send it rolling. Naturally.
Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. This is Christian.
And this is Jordan.
We're currently making our way through the tunnels of Voon. I can't say that it's very scenic. It's quite dark, actually, other than our flashlights and lamps. But we had to go to the place where Arca Jeth really came into his most powerful self and used the ability of battle meditation for the first time. You have to visit all the, what do you call it? A site, like a holy site, pilgrimage, whatever that is.
Absolutely. But before we get into that, I just want to, first of all, thank all of our supporting listeners, all the people who join up on Patreon and help us keep the lights on here. If you want to support the show, just $3 USDs a month, and you can get access. We also have a $5 tier, which gives you not only the bonus episodes, but you also get ad-free listening as well. You can also support the show by giving us some Bitcoin or single donations on PayPal. You can also buy merch as well. We have a few designs on Redbubble. So yeah, if you guys want to do any of those things, make sure you go and check out the description of our show. Check out the link tree. All the links will be in there. And if you want to help us out another way, a big way is just rating and reviewing the show or sharing it with people who you might think would like it. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, and we are on Discord as well. So come in and hop in on the Discord server. Any other questions, fan art, fan fiction,
Comments, corrections.
yeah, anything like that, business inquiries, just send them over to starlordspodcast@gmail.com. And with that, I'll throw it back to you, Christian. Let's get into Sir Arca Jeth.
Sir.
Yeah.
You've knighted him. I guess he was a knight.
Yeah.
Better known as a master. Yeah, Arca Jeth. He's a legend of the Jedi. He is one of those Jedi that, like, thousands of years later, you know about him. He's respected and well regarded. For those who weren't quite cluing into the era that we're looking at here, this is just before the rise of Ula Keldroma. So in the Old Republic, prior to the rise of Revan, we have this story. And, you know, we've gone over Onderon and Frida Nad, and this is the other side of it, the Jedi side of that story. Yeah.
I mean, he really is kind of the archetypal sort of guide story in the hero's journey. If you go online and look at his appearance, visual representation, you know, like, I don't know, what's the master's name in the Karate Kid? Yeah, that guy, that archetype. No, he doesn't look like him, but just that he is
Miyagi.
Miyagi. He is that kind of archetype. So when you're thinking that's what I think when I think Arca Jeth.
Yeah, that's essentially the character model that he takes on. He looks almost like an elven mage.
Yeah,
he gives that like Gandalfish appearance.
Yeah, kind of a weathered looking face.
Yeah,
you know,
but like, you know, long white hair.
Yeah,
you know, very wise. He funny on his appearance. We did describe his appearance a few times in the episode. The reason for that is his appearance is actually a little bit inconsistent in a lot of the artwork. Arca Jeth is one of these Nexus characters who intersects a lot of different storylines. I'll get more into that in a minute here. But because he's handled by so many authors, so many depictions, sometimes he's depicted with like little elven ears, like the pointed ears, which are part of his Sephi heritage. Other times he's depicted more like a human. Inconsistencies in his 4 and 5. Sometimes he's depicted with 5 fingers or 4 fingers. Canonically, he's supposed to have 4 fingers. But it's funny that they retroactively wrote into the story this inconsistency where like he gets burned and then surgically altered to fix his ears, and then they go back and correct all his hollow images and sculptures to depict his corrected appearance, which is just a funny way of in canon, in story way of fixing this discrepancy of how he keeps appearing in art and depictions. But yeah, he's a pretty cool character. Obviously, he's like the pinnacle of Jedi-ness of his time.
Yeah.
Some interesting thoughts, however, with that in mind, that he's this like, you know, exemplary Jedi. There's a couple of things you may have noticed in this episode. Is one, in this era, Jedi are allowed to marry. You have a couple of cases where not only do you have Jedi pairing off and getting married, they're having kids, and those kids are being inducted into the Jedi Order. So that's an interesting contrast to the Jedi that we are introduced to in the Republic, fall of the Republic era. When Anakin's brought forward.
Yeah.
The very thing that hinges on Anakin's whole fall to the dark side being that of wanting to be with Padme. That and the other big inconsistency is the having of multiple apprentices. Arca Jeth has at one point even 3 apprentices going at the same time. It has like multiple students at his academy. Contrasted again with the era of Episode 1, where the Jedi Order firmly tell Qui-Gon he may not take Anakin on as an apprentice. A lot of people believe that Obi-Wan being Anakin's apprentice is also a factor in his fall. Had it been Qui-Gon, things would have been way different.
Yeah.
So it's again contrasting of this old Jedi Order, their commitment to the rules in the Episode 1 era, and then with Luke's New Order once again going back to that no, yes, you can fall in love and get married, and that one, the multiple apprentices rule kind of has to be broken because Luke is the only remaining Jedi, and there's just such a shortage of Jedi that they, in order to be sustainable, they have to have a group of apprentices. But still, that's another. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Strict orthodoxy that they break with that intermittent Jedi period right before their fall.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting even examining the differences of the new Jedi Order compared to the old Jedi Order, or the classical Jedi Order, we'll call it, or even the ancient Jedi Order. We'll split them into those epochs. They all kind of change, and how oftentimes they're very dogmatic in their approaches, but just those changes time. I do kind of think of different Christian or Muslim sects, even in the real world, and how different they.
Not the Star Wars Muslims.
No, but just how different, and even how there's sort of offshoots that have some sort of lineage to, for instance, Baha'ism. It does have a lineage to Islam. But it is very different from Islam. Anyone who's familiar with it. So there's a lot of those things, and I almost kind of get that sense where just in these completely different eras, that you're almost talking. Yeah, maybe there is some lineage. In name, they seem the same. They're the same, but they really are quite.
In practice and belief, they've become something very different.
Yeah, and even the culture, the identity, the cultural understanding of what they are. But it is interesting jumping into the era of Arca Jeth and just examining how the Jedi Order worked when he was a prominent Jedi.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned a little bit ago, Arca Jeth is this Nexus character I described him as, where he's a precursor to a lot of stories. So he has his own little set of stories about how he rises up and his encounters and things. But really he serves as that mentor figure in other stories that are quote unquote more important.
Yeah.
So the stories of Ulic and Kay Keldroma and Exar Kun, which we'll get into in the near future here. He's setting up the backdrop for that, right? He's the Qui-Gon in Episode 1. Qui-Gon, by the time you meet him in Episode 1, already has his history. He's, a Jedi Master and everything. But the story is really about Anakin and Obi-Wan, right? Qui-Gon's story is ending when you meet him. Same with Arca Jeth. His story is coming to an end when we first meet him. And really, it's a story of Ulic and Kay and Exar Kun and all that stuff going on. All that being said, of course, whenever you have one of these prominent characters, you go back and you create this whole backstory and fill it all in. Same with Qui-Gon, right? Having all these books and stuff come out after the fact.
Yeah.
That being said, he's also serves as this backdrop character for some familiar names that you might have heard through the episode. The Dre family, Corinda, who we mentioned later in the Old Republic comic book series, founds the Jedi Covenant, who are seeking these Sith artifacts, and that leads into the whole hunt for Zane Carrick, and his own master, Lucian Dre. So Corinda is Lucian's mother. And this is one of those legacy families where like the parents were both Jedi and then the son follows into that Jedi order. And then Hazen, who we later discover is this dark side acolyte, right? Go back and listen to our Zane Carrick episodes if you want the full story around that. But once again, Arca Jeth is the master that trained his parents, Lucian Dre's parents, right? So he's, again, this figure kind of in the background of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Nomi Sunrider, who, again, we'll get more in depth with the Droma versus Kuhn legacy series and everything. And then, Frida Nad, who we talked about in previous episodes, and Vandar Tokar that people may remember from the video games Knights of the Republic. So he's this character that he has these debates with Vandar. So like I said, he's this character that intersects with so many other figures that have their own stories and are like the chief protagonists of their stories. But again, Arca Jeth is in that background, kind of filling all that out.
Yeah, he is sort of that backbone character. I did find it kind of interesting if you go to his Wikipedia page. If you look in the canon version of Arca Jeth, he's listed as Ulic Qel-Droma's Jedi Master because he's not actually named in the canon. So Ulic Qel-Droma does have some sort of Jedi Master in the canon version, but Arca Jeth is never officially named. Yeah. I maybe that's like sort of the assumption is that it is Arca Jeth, or if they ever circle back to that story, they
won't.
Yeah, they won't. I don't.
They have
see
so
why
many
they
other
would.
things to do.
Yeah. But I just thought it was funny, like his title in the canon tab on Wikipedia, like Qel-Droma's Jedi Master.
We'll give him a different name.
Yeah.
He's another creation created by Tom Veitch, who we've mentioned quite a bit in the past as well.
Big name in the Star Wars.
Yep. Yeah. A very cool character overall. I quite like him. One more thing I just wanted to mention to you about Arca is his battle meditation. I believe this series is when it's first introduced. Well, that's not true. It's introduced in the similar run with the Ancient Sith who use it. Then Arca Jeth uses it. And then for the Jedi, so I could say he's the first Jedi to use it strongly. But then characters like Bastila Shan later in the Knights of the Republic video games also features heavily using this ability. Same with Nomi Sunrider. So it's an interesting power that pops up and kind of is plot relevant in a lot of cases. That's what makes Bastila so special in the Knights of the Old Republic era. And it is a very unique ability that is not often mastered by many Jedi. And you will see this ability appear again later during the later Sith Wars. And then I believe Jaina Solo has this ability as well, if I'm not mistaken. So it's one of those, like, again, you get introduced these little concepts or characters that intersect in a lot of different stories. And those are the cool, like, overlapping, I don't know if they're quite Easter eggs, but, elements that tie the whole universe, like, oh, that's a cool ability. I remember playing Knights of the Old Republic, and then you read it in a book thousands of years later or thousands of years before.
Yeah.
Just one of those cool little things that ties the galaxy together.
It is kind of cool. I do like that it becomes a real story plot point. Even though it's obviously, it's almost like a thing that was created obviously for like an RPG.
Yeah.
It's obviously created, but I think it still works in the story. And I think it does work even as a Force ability, particularly because we do know the Force has an ability, it affects people's minds, right, and their consciousness. So I think that
it's believable. It's not, it's way out of left field.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are some more wilder Force abilities, but I don't think battle meditation is totally outside what's
possible.
Yeah, what is possible,
realistic.
Yeah. What is it within the established rules of the Star Wars universe? I'll say
certainly.
But
yeah.
I don't know if you got anything else there.
No, he's an interesting character. Really like him.
Yeah, not a lot of people might know about him, so go check him out. let us know what you think about them. Don't forget to reach out to us on all the socials, and our email is starwarspodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to rate and review the show, and we will see you guys next time.